Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, Math Made Easy with Terry in 10 minutes. So we're going to talk about division of complex numbers. So how a complex number divided, okay? So we talk about when you're dividing complex number by real numbers and also by another complex numbers. All right, so before I proceed, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you've not clicked the notification bell, I don't know what you are waiting for. Please do so that when I post new videos, you'll be the first person to know. All right, so we'll go straight into it. So we're going to talk about division of complex numbers in this video. Okay, we'll talk about division of complex numbers. So now when you're dividing complex numbers, you can do this two ways. So you can be dividing a complex number by another real number, all right? So for instance, you could be having something like, let's say we have 3 plus 7j divided by 5. This is what we call divided by a real number. Or you could be dividing by another complex number. Okay? So you could be dividing by another complex number. So for example, you could have 3 plus 7i. And this time you'll be dividing by maybe, let's say, 1 minus 4i. Are you seeing it? So we're going to talk about these two scenarios in this video. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to start with the real numbers. Then I'm going to then end up with the what? Complex numbers. All right, so number one, when we're dividing by real numbers. So when you're dividing a complex number by real numbers. So there are two steps here, all right? So there are two steps to do. So the first thing is that when you're dividing by real numbers, you first have to divide each of the real numbers separately, then you simplify. Is that okay? So you then divide each by the real number. Separately. Then number two, then you what? Simplify. Okay? So for example, okay? If you have, let's assume we have 5 minus 4i, all divided by 3, okay? Now, and you want to divide this, so what you have to do is that you have to divide it separately. So it's going to be 5 divided by 3 minus 4 divided by 3i. Now, 5 divided by 3 is going to give you around 1.67 minus 4 divided by 3 is about 1.33i, and this is to 2 decimal what places, okay? And that will be the answer for that. Okay, now let me pick one more before I go to the second one. So let's assume we have 6 minus 6 minus 8i all divided by what? 2. So the same thing, you now have 6 divided by 2 minus, or let's use plus this time, so because we did minus the last time, plus 8i divided by what? 2. Now 6 divided by 2 will give you 3. 8 divided by 2 will give you what? 4i, and that will be the answer for that. So you see, it's pretty much easy with real number. Just make sure that you divide each of the numbers separately, then you now simplify. Okay. Now, the final one, we'll talk about when you're now dividing by another complex number, all right? So this is the last one. So when you're dividing by another complex number, okay? So there are 5 steps. Okay, so make sure before you come to this section, make sure you've watched my video on the conjugate, complex number conjugate, and the concept of conjugating complex numbers and how to go about it before you come here. And also try to review my video in quadratics about rationalization. Okay, so it's similar principle we're using here, but instead of rationalizing with the conjugate in algebra, but we're rationalizing with the conjugate in complex numbers. All right. So try to watch my video on rationalization as well as conjugate of complex numbers. Try to understand that before you proceed here. All right. So the first thing you have to do is that you have to then multiply the numerator and denominator. Okay, by the conjugate of the denominator. Okay, then after you've done with that, the next thing, you then expand the bracket using the multiplication rule. Okay, so you expand the bracket using multiplication rule. Number 3, when you've done that, you then simplify. Okay, now after simplifying, the next step is, so you simplify, okay? So after you've done simplifying, you then have to now divide each term by the real numbers separately. So similar to what we do, we talked about when you're dividing a complex number by real number, right? So you now divide each term by the real numbers separately. And this is number 4, right? Then number 5, you then what? Simplify again. So the final simplification, that is this. Okay, so the first thing, you multiply the numerator and denominator by the conjugate. So I've talked about conjugate earlier, so I believe we should be all familiar with that. Then we now expand the brackets, we simplify, and we now divide each term separately. All right. Okay, so let me pick an example for this so we can continue. So I'll just pick one for this video. All right, so it's very easy. So let's assume I have 3 plus 2j divided by 1 minus 3j. All right, and you are told to divide this. Okay, so what you do is that, so remember we talked about conjugates. So we said conjugates are numbers that are identical, but the only difference is in the middle sign. So instead of plus, it become minus, minus become plus. So now in this case, you have to multiply by the conjugate of the denominator. So it's going to become 1 plus 3j divided by 1 plus 3j. Are you seeing it? So with this now, we then have to now expand the bracket. So remember, I explained the concept of expanding brackets. So when you have a plus b multiplying c plus d, I told you it's going to be a times c, will give you ac. A times d will give you ad, and b times c is going to give you bc, and b times d is going to give you bd. All right. So also, I also told you that when you multiply two conjugates of complex number is equal to the square of when you added each of the numbers together, right? So we talked about this as well in the previous video, but I'm going to use the first one to do both of them, and you'll see what we're talking about. So let's go. So we're going to open the brackets now. So it's going to become 3 times 1. It's going to give us 3. 3 times 3i is going to give us 9i. Okay. We now have 2 I or 2j times 1 is going to give us what? 2j. Then 2 times 3 is going to give us 6i squared or 3j squared, depending what you're using. Now, remember, I also told you that in the previous video, I said that I squared is the same thing as -1, right? So don't forget that. We're going to use that when we're solving this. Now, as you can see, these are 2 conjugates we're multiplying. So it's going to be the same thing as saying 1 squared plus 3 squared. Are you seeing it? So remember, I told you that when you have 2 conjugates that you're multiplying in the previous video, is equal to a squared plus b squared. All right. So we can now solve this a little bit further. So we can now say, we can now break this down. So it's going to become 3 plus 9i plus 2i plus 6i squared is -1 divided by 1 squared is 1 plus 9. Are you seeing it? So we collect the like terms together now. So we have, this is going to give us 3. Let's open the brackets first before we collect like terms. It's going to be 3 plus 9i plus 2i. Now, plus times minus will give you -6 divided by 1 plus 9. Now, that will give you, so you're going to have, we'll add the real terms, so it'll be 3 and 6. So it's going to be 3 minus 6. And we have 9i plus 2i plus 9i plus 2i, all divided by 1 plus 9. So 3 minus 6 will give you -3. 9i plus 2i will give you 11i, all divided by 1 plus 9 will give you 10. Are you seeing it? Then we then have -3 plus 11i, all divided by 10. Are you seeing it? So that will be the same thing. So we have to divide it. Now we're dividing a conjugate by a real number, right? So it's going to become -3 divided by 10 plus 11i divided by 10. So -3 divided by 10 will give us -0.3. And 11 divided by 10 will give us 1.1i. And that will be the answer for this. So that's how you divide. So when you're dividing by another complex number, you do the conjugate, you open the bracket, you simplify, and you divide each of the terms by the real number to get the answer. All right, so that'll be that for that. And please, I would advise, go to the textbook, pick some questions, and solve some questions about this, okay? And see what you get. All right. So if you have any questions and you're not sure, please send me an email and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So we're going to go to the next video, which is going to be equal complex numbers. So when are we saying complex numbers are equal? So we're going to talk about the concept here, all right? And how to solve questions relating to equal complex numbers. All right. Thank you. So I'll see you in the next video. So don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell so that when I post the next video, you'll be the first person to know. So, all right. See you soon, and I'll see you in the next video.